Lewis tweeting, high drama coming tomorrow with this 2020 NFL Draft. Sense it. Lewis Riddick is live with us here on Get Up this morning. Lewis, what makes you feel that? What did that tweet mean?
Yeah, I think it's in relation to what everyone else is talking about surrounding the number 5 and number 6 spot overall in the first round there, where Miami and the Chargers are picking, and whether or not it's actually going to be quarterback there, or is it going to be position player Dolphins, position player LA Chargers. And I think we have to prepare ourselves for maybe that being the case for two different reasons. Obviously, one, as we're talking about with Tua, the risk involved with taking someone that high at that position, and then you possibly having gotten the medical wrong. Or maybe you didn't get the medical wrong, but then something happens to him from a medical perspective, and he doesn't realize his potential. And then with Justin Herbert, look, I've said all along, and this is not to be disrespectful to Justin Herbert, I just don't think he is worthy of being picked in the top 10. And I don't think he's worthy of being in this debate of, well, is it Joe Burrow, Tua, and Justin Herbert? Is it Joe Burrow and Tua, and then there's a big drop to Justin Herbert and Jordan Love? I mean, I don't see him being in that caliber, because when you watch their tape side by side, there is no comparison. So I think when you have that kind of uncertainty surrounding two guys, one because of medical and one possibly because what actually is his upside, could both of those teams pass on two quarterbacks, and then you have Tua, Herbert, and Jordan Love as you move on down the first round from pick 7 on, and then I think all what could break loose, and there could be all kinds of teams trying to move up, and then that would just make you look. Obviously, that would make our broadcast pretty darn special now, wouldn't it? And I have a sense, just from talking to people about it and from looking at it objectively as I can, could both of these teams pass on quarterbacks? I think it could happen.
Okay, and so if it does, let's just follow you there. Now, as you say, all what could break loose, and that could bring the Raiders into the conversation. That could bring the Patriots into the conversation, and many other teams that might be trying to move up. What do you see as a likely team? In your mind, what is a logical and likely team that might try to make a really major move up for a quarterback if, let's say, for the sake of argument, Tua falls?
Yeah, I think if Tua falls in particular, I think there's no question you have to keep your eye on the Patriots at that point. Because sitting down there at 23, they're right now in no man's land, so to speak. There's good players that'll be picked in the 20s, but it's not very definitive. I mean, you can't really say, look, this is a guy who definitely represents the value you would get at the 23 spot. I think that would be a team that you'd have to keep an eye on at that point. I said before, look, I am not in any way, saying that Dak Prescott is not worthy of getting a long-term contract and being one of the highest paid players in the National Football League, because he is. And I'll say that over and over again. But if these quarterbacks are on the board and Dallas is sitting there picking in the middle of the first round, how could you not have the discussion? I mean, did you hear what Jimmy Johnson just said the other day about the value of quarterbacks, even when you don't need them? You have to take them, especially if someone falls to you that you had no idea was going to fall to you, because then they become a negotiating piece. They become someone that has value to you, maybe not to you on your football team, but they have value to you, other people, and you can use them in that way as a movable piece. So I think, again, if those quarterbacks start falling, keep an eye on the Cowboys, keep an eye on the Raiders, but in particular, keep an eye on the Patriots, because I would think, given their quarterback situation, that it'd be something that they would be very intrigued by.
The real focal point is what happens at 5 if it stays that way. And Shefty and Laura both pointed out, if the Dolphins go with a positional player, then pandemonium ensues, because what happens to one of those quarterbacks and Justin Herbert and Tua that falls? And then the fact that he brought up, listen, Jordan Love could be a surprise. And then, again, pandemonium happens with Tua and Justin Herbert, and you're going to see a ton of teams trying to get up for one of those quarterbacks. So a lot of interest with those two picks.
Listen, the history of the draft, we've seen a lot of quarterbacks fall when we didn't expect it. Aaron Rodgers, Brady Quinn, Dan Marino, among others. Marcus, what's your number one thought here?
The intriguing thing for me, G, obviously, if Tua gets past 5 and 6, then what happens? How many teams' boards change based upon the possibility of being able to trade up and get Tua Tagovailoa? This is the most intriguing thing about the first round of the NFL draft. Obviously, we think it's going to stay to the cuff, and either somebody trades up to 3 or he goes 5 or 6. But after that, there are teams there that may be looking for quarterbacks that didn't know they were looking for a quarterback until Tua Tagovailoa became available. The Vegas Raiders stood out to me. I think about Tampa Bay. I mean, Tom Brady only has a 2-year deal with all of that talent and possibly the chance to get Tua Tagovailoa. The Carolina Panthers, are they 100% sold on Teddy Bridgewater after we saw what Joe Brady did with Joe Burrow at LSU? There are so many scenarios if Tua gets past 6 and starts to fall, per se.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.